大家好，全世界使用中文的朋友们，大家好。看几个新闻。China Ant Group says to raise $34 billion in record IPO。中国的蚂蚁集团、蚂蚁金服准备融资34 billion。Chinese e-payments giant Ant Group said Monday it plans to raise $34 billion in a listing shared between Hong Kong and Shanghai, making it the biggest IPO in history. Ant Group company runs Alipay, the dominant online payment system in China, where cash, check, and credit cards have long been eclipsed by e-payment devices and apps. The record-shattering IPO comes as the administrative of U.S. President Donald Trump tries to smother Chinese technology companies whose accent is seen by Washington as a threat to American security, prestige, and in the digital age. So now, the cash raised from the split float between Hong Kong and Shanghai would exceed the $29 billion chalked up by Saudi Aramco in December, a high-profile win from a Chinese company during a period of bad headlines for tech firms from the mainland. The financial arm of e-commerce titan Alibaba Ant Group runs Alipay, the dominant online payment system in China, where cash, checks, and credit cards have long been eclipsed by e-payment devices and apps. According to the statements released by Ant Group late Monday, the e-payments behemoth plans to sell 1.67 billion shares at Hong Kong $80 or $10.3 each in Hong Kong from Tuesday. A further 1.67 billion shares will be sold in Shanghai at 68.8 yuan RMB, also $10.3. The total sale would therefore exceed $34 billion and could be close to $40 billion if over-allotment options are taken up. The securities will begin trading on November 5th, with global sovereign as well as pension funds expected to be among the major investors. Ant is closely stitched into everyday life in China, providing a nearly complete banking system, services from digital payments to micro investments and insurance. Ant Group gets final nod from Chinese regulators for dual Hong Kong Shanghai listing. It claims an annual transaction volume exceeding 118 trillion yuan, with more than 700 million monthly active users. The company's entry into Shanghai and Hong Kong comes after Beijing called on national flagships of the tech sector to list on domestic stock exchanges. In a period of sharp economic and political rivalry with the U.S. rivalry对抗 Jack Ma, the billionaire founder of Alibaba, noted the significance of the potential for a large opening in two Chinese cities. This was the first time such a big listing, the biggest in human history, was priced outside New York City. He told that the Bond Summit in Shanghai on Saturday, in comments reported by Bloomberg. We wouldn't have dared to think about it 5 years or even 3 years ago, added Ma, who stepped down as Alibaba's executive chairman last year. The decision not to list in New York is a big loss for U.S. markets and comes as Washington ramps up scrutiny of Chinese tech firms. A number of high-profile Chinese firms, especially those in the tech sector, have turned to Hong Kong owing to tension between Washington and Beijing. It's also a shot in the arm for Hong Kong as fears mount over the potential fallout from Beijing's imposition of a new national security law on the city Hong Kong. Analysts say the mega IPO showed position on the group to deepen its reach into major overseas market. But the trade and tech war with the US, which has ripped into market from Europe to Australia, may hobble the Chinese behemoth's overseas march. Dow falls 700 points as coronavirus infections rise and hope fades for stimulus talks. Wall Street took a dive Monday as hopes faded for a fresh round of fiscal aid and the number of new coronavirus cases surged, with 79,303 new cases on Friday. The Dow Jones Industrial Average fell by more than 730 points by mid-morning, or 2.6%. The S&P 500 was down 2.12%, and the Nasdaq Composite was lower by 1.8%. The total number of coronavirus cases has now reached 8.6 million, with over 225,000 deaths and a rising number of hospitalizations. White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows told CNN on Sunday that the Trump administration will defeat the pandemic because we are Americans. What we have to do is make sure we fight it with therapeutics and vaccines, take proper mitigation factors in terms of social distancing and masks when we can. Meadows said it is a contagious virus, just like the flu. The stock slump also comes amid stalled hopes for a final agreement on a new round of fiscal aid for the millions of families affected by the coronavirus pandemic. Market point to a lower open market plan point to a lower open as investors monitored stimulus talk. Negotiation between House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, D. Cliff, and the Treasury Secretary Stephen Mnuchin have certainly slowed down, White House economic advisor Larry Kudlow told CNBC on Monday morning, "We're close, but there are still important policy issues that separated us. I think the recovery, although there is a lot more work to do, is proceeding probably faster than most folks thought." Kudlow added, "The travel and hospitality sector took the heaviest hit Monday, with Wynn Resorts down 5.5% in the morning trading session, American Airlines down 6%, and the Norwegian Cruise Line down almost 9%. Tech stocks also faltered after SAP, one of the Europe's key software companies, cut its outlook for 2020, among signs that businesses are pulling back their spending. This is last full week before Election Day, and the economy remains a priority for both presidential candidates as they conclude their campaign amid a backdrop of fast-rising economic uncertainty. A growing number of Wall Street participants are concluding that a blue wave in November is the nation's best shot at economic recovery, while markets generally favor the lower tax rate and regulatory rollbacks that are the hallmark of a Republican administration. The unprecedented job loss and economic disruption caused by the coronavirus pandemic has left many market watchers concluding that a united government might be better equipped to provide the critical fiscal support a bitterly partisan Congress cannot. Moon NASA announcement: there may be more water on the moon than previously believed. There may be more water on the moon than previously believed, and it could be used as a resource during upcoming missions like NASA's return of humans to the lunar surface through the Artemis program. The moon is seen prior to the penumbral eclipse starting on September 28, 2015, in Somerset, England. Tonight's supermoon, so called because it is the closest full moon to the Earth this year, is particularly rare as it coincides with a lunar eclipse, a combination that has not happened since 1982 and won't happen again until 2033. The two studies published in the journal Nature Astronomy, and the researchers shared their findings during a NASA press conference on Monday. The research is based on data gathered by NASA's Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter, in orbit around the Moon since June 2009, as well as the agency's Stratospheric Observatory for Infrared Astronomy Airborne Telescope, called SOFIA. The latter is Boeing 747 SP aircraft modified to carry a 2.7-meter telescope. In the first study, researchers used SOFIA to observe the Moon at a wavelength that revealed the signature of molecular water, or H2O. For the first time, water has been confirmed to be present on the sunlight surface of the Moon, said Paul Hertz, NASA's astrophysics division director, during Monday's press conference. Previous research reviewed the detections of water on the surface of the moon near the South Pole, but the signature of molecular water at the wavelengths used in this research could also be associated with hydrox 1, which is oxygen bonded with hydrogen. In organic chemistry, alcohols tend to include hydrogen 1, which contributes to making molecules soluble in water. Hydrox 1 is also an ingredient in drain cleaner. The SOFIA detections confirmed that water, not hydrox, can be found trapped into glass beads or in between grains on the moon on its high southern latitudes. There, water is present between 100 to 400 parts per million. The fact that this water is inside the grain or in between grains on the lunar surface helps protect it from the moon's harsh and irradiated environment. In the second study, researchers used data from the lunar orbiters to study cold traps in permanently shadowed areas on the moon where water could remain frozen. Some of these cold traps may have evaded the sun for billions of years. Ice-filled pole traps, the most common hidden pockets of water across the lunar surface, could be trapped into teeny, penny-sized ice patches that live in permanent shadows. The researchers discovered, if you can imagine standing on the surface of the moon near one of its poles, you would see shadows all over the place, said Paul Heiyan, lead study author and assistant professor in the Laboratory of Atmospheric and Space Physics at the University of Colorado Boulder, in a statement. Many of these teeny shadows could be full of ice. After assessing the potential size of the traps, ranging from centimeters to kilometers, the researchers determined that permanently shadowed area at both of the moon's polar regions could contain a multitude of these micro-cold traps. In fact, they could be hundreds to thousands of times more abundant than large cold traps. The moon could contain 15,000 square miles of permanently shadowed traps in a range of sizes that could preserve water ice. The researchers previously estimates have put the estimate at about half of that, at about 7,000 square miles. If we are right, water is going to be more accessible for drinking water, for rocket, for fuel, everything that NASA needs water for, Hein said. Previous research for ice on the moon have been concentrated around large craters at the poles, where temperatures have been measured as low as negative 405.67 degrees Fahrenheit. Massive craters close to the lunar South Pole include Shackleton crater, which is several miles deep and about 13 miles across, and most of it is permanently in shadow. The temperatures are so low in cold traps that ice could behave like a rock. Hein said, if water gets in there, it's not going anywhere for a billion years. By using data from the lunar orbiter and modeling, the researchers determined that the lunar surface resembles that of a golf ball. Of course, actual proof of this ice-filled shadowy pockets will require future digging by rovers or humans on the lunar surface. But future missions to the moon, like landing the first woman and the next man near the South Lunar Pole by 2024 through NASA's Artemis program, could reveal more information. Ahead of that, Hein is also leading the Lunar Compact Infrared Imaging System, a NASA effort that would capture heat-sensing panoramic 全景的 images of the moon's surface near its south pole in 2022. Astronauts may not need to go into these deep, dark shadows. He said they could walk around and find out that's a meter wide, and that might be just as likely to harbor ice. The latest Italian reports 17,000 new COVID-19 cases, 141 deaths. Rome, Italy registered slightly more than 17,000 new confirmed COVID-19 cases on Monday. That's fewer than daily increase of the last few days, but tens of thousands fewer swab tests were conducted in the last 24 hours, as often happens over a weekend. Italy's total of known coronavirus infection during the pandemic now stands at 542,789. Compared to the first months of the outbreak, when most cases were concentrated in Italy's north, the current situation seeing surging infection nationwide, prompting the government to order new restrictions that took effect on Monday, including closure of gyms, cinemas, and early shutdown of restaurant dining and cafes. The regions with the highest day-to-day caseload on Monday was again north-southern Lombardy, which includes Milan, Italy's financial hub, followed by Tuscany in the central north and Campania, the southern region that includes Naples. Hospitalizations and ICU admission continued their steady increase. Italy's death toll rose to 37,479 after 141 more deaths. Here's what you need to know about the virus outbreak. Trump to intensify his campaign schedule despite the U.S. virus surge. New White House outbreak. Worry of angering public with restrictions, Iran has few ways to contain virus. Nations across Europe enact more sweeping restrictions to try to slow surging infection rates. Mexico acknowledged far more deaths than officially confirmed, seeing 139,151 now attributes to COVID-19. El Paso, Texas imposed curfew as virus cases overwhelm hospitals. COVID-19 cases surge in north-central West Virginia County, shutting down schools and sports. Here's what else is happening. Sarajevo, Bosnia-Herzegovina, a senior Bosnian health official is warning that the impoverished Balkan country is facing a rapid rise in the number of patients with the new coronavirus. Deputy Health Ministry in the half of the Bosnia run by Bosniak and Croats Current said Monday all hospitals in the region have been instructed to allocate one-third of their capacity for treatment of COVID-19 patients. Wearing face masks has become mandatory in open public space as well as inside. Bosnia has reported a surge in new cases in the past weeks, reaching record numbers. On Monday, authorities reported 703 new cases for the past 24 hours and said 18 people have died. Meanwhile, in the remaining part of Bosnia, dominated by Serbs, authorities placed the schools on remote teaching in an effort to contain the virus spread. Bosnia's health system is among the weakest in Europe after the country went through a devastating war in the 1990s. London. The large town of Warrington is the latest part of England to be put under tightened restrictions as part of the three-tier system to slow the spread of the coronavirus. The government says the city in northwest England will move to the top very high-risk Tier 3 on Tuesday. That means most pubs and bars will have to close. Non-essential travel outside the area is discouraged, and people cannot mix indoors with members of other households. The case rate per 100,000 people in Warrington is twice the national average. Warrington is between Liverpool and Manchester, which have some of the country's highest COVID-19 infection rates and are already in Tier 3. There are mixed signs about whether measures introduced in the last few weeks have stemmed a steep rise in coronavirus infection. Government scientific advisors say there are some signs the increase has begun to level off since the three-tier system of restrictions came into force, but that it is too soon to be certain. Britain has been seeing Europe's deadliest coronavirus outbreak, with almost 45,000 confirmed deaths. Copenhagen, Denmark. Norway on Monday put a nationwide limit for public gathering to 50, down from 200, and at the same time urged that a maximum 5 guests at a time can visit people in private homes. The announcement by Prime Minister Erna Solberg came ahead of the traditional Christmas party held by companies, associations, and privates across Norway. These events are traditionally held before Christmas Eve, when Norwegians celebrate Yule. The new restrictions start Tuesday at midnight and last until early December, but can be extended if needed. Norway has had 17,908 confirmed COVID-19 cases and 279 deaths. Berlin, the Bavarian city of Nuremberg has canceled its big Christmas market, one of Germany's best known because of fast rising coronavirus infections. The bustling Christchurch landmark is traditionally a big tourist draw. City officials originally wanted to go ahead with the event and strict hygiene rules, but Mayor Macau's Corin said Monday they concluded even that would send the wrong signal as virus cases rise. Germany, like other European countries, has seen new virus cases rise rapidly over the past 2 weeks. Nuremberg is currently seeing 76 new cases per 100,000 infections over 7 days, well above the 50 mark, at which local authorities have to start taking actions. Trinidad, Albania authorities have decided to open a new COVID-19 hospital with 150 beds after the existing 2 hospitals are reaching their limits. Health Minister Augusta Ministrelli on Monday said that the 2 existing COVID-related hospitals with 320 beds are reaching their limits, and the new one will open this week. Albania has seen a surge of the daily new virus cases, doubling compared to 2 weeks ago. The European Centre for Disease Prevention and Control said Albania's cumulative figures for new cases per 100,000 inhabitants has increased to 131 cases compared to 75 cases 2 weeks ago. Authorities have reported 19,157 confirmed cases with 477 confirmed related deaths as of Sunday. Holding the mask is mandatory indoor and outdoor, and police have fined hundreds of Albanians not wearing it every day. Prague has announced it is cancelling its major traditional Christmas market due to a record surge in coronavirus infections. City Hall said Monday that it is a necessary step to curb the further uncontrolled spread of the pandemic. The decision applies to the most famed market at the picturesque market Old Town Square that is considered by many one of the best in Europe, and also for the ones at Wisconsin and Republic Squares. Prague says it is still planning to erect a traditional Christmas tree at the Old Town Market, and if the epidemic market is possible, also allow few small stores. A number of cities across Europe have announced the same move, while some others, such as Vietnam, will go ahead as Europe. The Czech Republic had 258,97 confirmed cases, with about 1/3 of the number registered in the last 7 days. So far, 2,201 people have died, 1,528 of them in October. The 7-day rolling average of daily new cases has risen over the past 2 weeks from about 46 new cases per 100,000 people on October 11 to 112 new cases per 100,000 people on Sunday. Berlin, a second German district, is to go into a de facto lockdown as a new coronavirus infection surge in the country and across Europe. News agency dpa reported that local authorities in Bavaria, Rhein County, on the border with Austria, said Monday that the restriction will begin at midnight. Rhein follows Berlin-Garten, another Bavarian county in Germany, the southeastern corner, which introduced similar restrictions last week. Schools and kindergartens will be closed and events cancelled, and people told not to leave their home without a good reason. Rhein has recorded well over 200 new infections per 100,000 inhabitants over the past 7 days. In Germany, districts are required to take measures once new infection top the 50 marks, and many have done so in recent weeks, imposing measures such as early bar closures and requirements to wear masks outdoors in some public places. Germany's new infections have been increasing by sometimes record number over the past 2 weeks, though they are still considerably Germans short of the numbers seen in many other European countries. El Paso, Texas. Residents in the Texas border city of El Paso have been urged to stay home for 2 weeks as a spike in coronavirus cases overwhelms hospitals. The uptick in virus cases has also prompted the state to dedicate part of the city's civic center as a makeshift healthcare center for the ill. On Sunday night, El Paso County's top elected official issued a stay-at-home order that imposed a daily curfew from 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. Violators could be fined $500 and the order. Earlier Sunday, Texas Governor Greg Abbott said 50 hospital beds will be set up in the city's convention center, and another 50 beds could be added if needed. The state has already sent over 900 medical personnel to El Paso, some of whom will be staffing the convention center site, added if needed. The state has already sent over 900 medical personnel to El Paso, some of whom will be staffing the convention center site. El Paso County health officials reported 72 new coronavirus cases Sunday, a day after a record of 1,216 new infections were reported. Madrid. Authorities in Spain's northeastern region of Catalonia are considering a mandatory stay-at-home order for weekends only, one of the strictest measures being imposed across the country to combat a sharp resurgence of the coronavirus and a new state of emergency declared by the national government on Sunday. Spain's 17 regions and 2 autonomous cities can tailor restrictions that include a nationwide overnight curfew, a cap of 6 people on social gatherings, and possible regional travel bans. Only Spain's Canary Island, where the curve of contagion has been kept at the bay, will be exempted from the 11 p.m. to 6 a.m. general curfew, which other region officials can decide to push 1 hour earlier or later. The aim is to rein in infections from gathering of family and in friends at home or in bars. The Spanish government wants the state of emergency to be extended later this week until May, with as many votes as possible in the country's parliament. Spain last week became the first European country to surpass 1 million officially recorded COVID-19 cases, although officials say that the real figure could be way above 3 million. London, British authorities are likely to tighten restrictions on more areas of the country this week, amid mixed signs about whether recent measures have stemmed a steep rise in coronavirus infection. Government scientific advisors say there are some signs the increase has begun to level off since a 3-tier virus risk system of restriction came into effect. But that's but that is too soon to be certain. A large chunk of northern England, including the major cities of Liverpool, Manchester, and Sheffield, has been placed into the top tier of the very high risk, with pubs closed and people from different households barred from mixing. The regional disparities are causing friction between local politicians in the north and Prime Minister Boris Johnson Conservative government, which has been accused of not doing enough to support people and businesses hit by the local lockdowns. The government is talking to local leaders in other areas, including the city of Warrington, in northwest England and the central England county of Nottinghamshire, about moving into the highest tier. Wales, Scotland, and Northern Ireland have established their own public health rules, with Wales introducing the strictest measures, a 17-day lockdown for all its 3 million people. Britain has Europe's deadliest coronavirus outbreak, with almost 45,000 confirmed deaths. Paris, virus patients now occupy more than half of France's intensive care units, and some doctors are urging tougher restrictions after another record jump in confirmed infections. Dr. Jean Francisco's head of the government virus advisory body, expressed surprise on Monday at the brutality of the rise after more than 52,000 new cases were reported Sunday. Speaking on RTL radio, he floated the idea of local lockdowns or extending France's 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. curfews, which currently cover about half of the country and more than 2/3 of its people. The number of people hospitalized in France with the virus has climbed sharply in recent weeks, putting renewed pressure on ICUs. COVID patients now fill more than 2/3 of the ICUs in the Paris region. Dr. Eric Corton, head of the Infectious and Tropical Disease Department at Paris Petit Statutory Hospital, told the broadcaster Francisco on Monday that we have lost control of the epidemic, though it doesn't date from yesterday. France has been among countries hardest hit by the pandemic, reporting 34,761 virus-related deaths. It is currently registering more than 340 positive cases per 100,000 people nationwide each week. Directly warns this latest wave of the virus could be stronger than the first and is spreading all around Europe. Thanks for watching.